Hello humans, it is not Martine, it is Kim, and welcome to the next instalment of the 12 TBRs of friendship. If this is your first 12 TBRs of friendship video, you may or may not be aware that this is a carbon copy of Martine from Just Martine's 12 TBRs of Christmas. A few months ago, back around the summer of 2025, I think, Martine's besties on BookTube contacted me and asked me if I would be happy to record a video towards this project. This whole project is inspired by Martine, who is a wonderful booktuber. If you haven't seen them, please go and check out their channel. Absolutely love their videos that they put out. You never quite know what you're gonna get with Martine because they don't read the kind of same books that you see on YouTube time and time again. There's a lot of different things put in there, different genres, different types of books, and yeah, really fun. They're a really fun booktuber and I highly recommend. And every year during the year, Martine is busy making these crazy concept reading vlogs ready to be put out at Christmas. So during the 12 days of Christmas, every single day you're going to get a video from Martine and it's going to be really fun and really crazy and great. And so it was decided that there should be a 12 TBRs celebrating Martine and making videos inspired by their videos. And I was so honoured to be asked because I absolutely love watching Martine's channel. The video of Martine's that I decided to use was the double blind book experiment. This was a video concept that Martine came up with inspired by the double blind experiment. And that is an experiment where, okay, probably go to Martine's channel to get a better explanation because they study psychology, but essentially you have a placebo, I think, and a non-placebo, and you give it to the participant who doesn't know which is which. And I think ideally the researchers also don't know who's given which thing, which doesn't quite work in this video. You don't know which is which, and yeah, you just have to see the results. And the idea is that there's less biases because you have no idea which is which I've just realised now when I'm going to cut to me going through the books. It's obviously I do use bias to make my judgments on whether or not I think I'm going to like or not like a book. Okay, so let me get back to it. The idea of this video is to get a few people to choose one book that they think that you are going to like, one book that you think you're not going to like. I don't know which is which. I try and make a bit of a judgment call and then I read them and then I see the outcomes. When Martine did this video, they knew who chose their books for them. For me, I thought I would try and change it a little bit and make it a little bit harder for myself to guess which was which out of the books by not knowing which of the three people have selected the books for me. So the three people I chose to choose books for me were my mum, which was dangerous because you never know what on earth my mum is going to pick. Amy from A Star Reads and Manny from Reading with Manny. And so yeah, I felt like I probably had a fair idea of what type of books they would pick for me to like and not like, but because actually I think they would pick fairly similar things, it would be difficult for me to work out who picked what for me and therefore maybe make it harder to guess the outcome, the reading outcome. Like, am I going to like this book? Am I not going to like this book? If you know what I mean. So yeah, I'm going to cut now to past me, who is going through all the books and trying to make my guesses of whether or not I'm going to like them or not like them. And I'm trying to guess who gave them to me, but obviously I have no idea at this point. Hey guys, so I have come with my trusty War of the Worlds notebook to talk through the books that my three people have suggested to me. So I'm actually recording this a long time after they actually did suggest it because yeah, I wasn't sure when to start this video, but I decided to start it now. Today is currently the 14th of October, so I have like a couple of months to try and get these books read and finished. Well, a few months, I guess. No, probably just 2.5 months. I need to get moving, basically. Okay, so I'm going to go through the list of books. I don't know who sent me what. I probably already explained that. I'm going to try and make a guess of who has said which book. Does that make sense? Yeah, I'm going to guess who has suggested which book for me to read and whether or not they think it's going to be a hit or a miss for me. So first on the list, this by the way is in any order. I got Manny and Amy to send the books to my mum, who then sent them to Spencer, who then sent them to me in no particular order and in the same format, so I couldn't like match them together depending on what format that they were sent in. Okay, so first up we have By Any Other Name by Lauren Kate. I'm gonna let myself just look at the cover and make a judgment from there. Okay, By Any Other Name by Lauren Kate. I'm not going to read the synopsis. I'm just going to look at the picture. So this looks like a romance, and I typically do not like romances. So I'm going to guess that this is definitely going to be a book that someone's chosen that they think I'm not going to like. And I think, oh yeah, my mum. Okay, my mum is a bit of a curveball in there because I don't know what on earth she could have chosen. So let's get all 6 books up and then let's discuss who I think has said what. So By Any Other Name by Lauren Kate, I do predict that this is going to be a miss for me. Next up we have Folk by Zoe Gilbert. I do actually own this already, and I know that Manny knows that I own this, and I feel like she has suggested it to me in the past as something that she thinks I would like. So going based off that, based off the fact that Manny's also read it, I think Manny has suggested this for me as something that I will like, but let's see about the others. Okay, third book is Frederica by Georgette Heyer. So this one is like a historical romance, and as I've already said, I don't typically like romance, so I'm going to say that this is probably going to be a miss for me as well, or that somebody has predicted it's going to be a miss for me. Next we have The Lost Story by Meg Schaffer, and this cover is so pretty. I absolutely love it, and my instinct is to say that I'm going to love this book based on the cover alone. Now, this is the one that I think Manny has chosen for me, as well as Folk. But I'm definitely wrong somewhere if I think, number 1, they're both from Manny, and number 2, that they're both meant to be hits, because something's wrong there. That doesn't add up. Possibly be my mum as well, maybe, that has suggested this one. I don't think she's read it though. And I think Manny's read this. Okay, then we have The Sparrow by Mary Doris Russell. Now, just based on this cover, I've got no clue. I literally have no idea if I'm going to like this or not, because I don't know anything about it. I think I might have previously looked to see what it was actually about, but I've forgotten. So I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign. Yeah, no clue. So let's move on to the last one. The very last one is Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Bazterina. And this one is got to be a hate. It's got to be a you are going to hate this book. Like, I don't know who predicted this for me, but that is just plain mean. Number 1, I do not like horrors. Number 2, I'm a vegetarian. Number 3, I think that's it. Number 1, I don't like horrors. Number 2, I'm a vegetarian. Number 3, I would say actually loads of people find this book like gross and disgusting. So I'm terrified about this. The fact that I have to read this now terrifies me. I'm not going to go into this thinking, yeah, I can DNF books. I don't want to do that. So I'm really going to try with this book. I'm really going to try. But yeah, we'll see. I think as well, when I looked it up, I can only get it on an ebook, which is very Martine, because Martine reads a lot on ebook, on Kindle. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read it on Kindle because it's from my library, but yeah. Anyway, I'll work that out. Okay, so those are the 6 books. So we have 2 romances, which I think are going to be misses. Tender is the Flesh, which I think is going to be a miss. It does have potential to be a hit though, because this is completely out of my comfort zone. I never read anything like it. The Sparrow, I don't know anything about. I just don't know anything about it, so I just really can't predict. But based on the fact that I've said the 2 romances are miss and Tender is the Flesh is a miss, then I'm going to guess that The Sparrow was supposed to be a hit. Folk is supposed to be a hit, and The Lost Story is supposed to be a hit. And like I've already said, that makes no sense for my guesses, because I think Manny has picked 2 of those hits. Okay, alright, this is going to be what I guess. I think Amy has picked Tender as the Flesh for me, because Amy has definitely read it. I love Amy, but I know she'll be mischievous and want me to read Tender as the Flesh. I do think, hang on, no, but I thought that maybe she'd picked the romances for me. Maybe she's picked The Sparrow, because Amy has read, well, they've all read lots of different things. But I've never heard Amy talk about The Sparrow though. But I've already said that the romances are misses, so I did think Amy had picked me a romance and Tender is the Flesh. Unless she thinks I'm going to like one of the romances, but she knows that I don't typically like romance. So would she do that? Okay, I'm going to guess that Amy has picked The Sparrow as a book she thinks I'm going to like, and Tender is the Flesh for a book that she thinks I'm not going to like. So that's Amy done. Manny. Okay, I'm going to say that Manny thinks that Folk is a book that I am going to like. And I'm going to say By Any Other Name by Lauren Kate is a book that Manny thinks I'm not going to like. I don't know why Manny would pick me that romance, especially that romance in particular. But probably like way off. But that's what I'm going to go with. Those are my two guesses. And I'm going to guess that my mum picked Fredria by Georgette Heyer as a book that I'm not going to like because she also knows I don't like romance particularly. And I'm going to say that my mum picked The Lost Story by Meg Schaefer as a book she thinks I am going to like. Don't know if she's read it, don't think she's read it, but based on the cover alone, maybe she looked it up and thought, yeah, that's a book that Kimberly would like. So those are my guesses. They're locked in. That's what I think. Do I agree with what I think that they think? Hang on, this is turning into an episode of Friends. If I was gonna just guess off the bat, I think I've already said it, but let's just go over it again. I don't think I'm gonna like By Any Other Name. I think I will like Folk. I do have a bit of insider knowledge here because many years ago I did try a bit of it and it was weirder than I thought it was gonna be, so there's a chance I'm not gonna like it. However, the book is beautiful, so I hope that I do like it. Frederica, I don't think I'm gonna like it, but there is potential because I like Bridgerton, but I think I am gonna like it. I'm gonna say I am gonna like Frederica. That's my guess. I'm gonna say I'm gonna like The Lost Story. The Sparrow, I've got no idea, but I've already got my 3 likes if I'm saying I'm gonna like Frederica. And that is based on knowing nothing about The Sparrow, so this worries me now. Okay, because I want to guess 3 and 3, I'm going to guess I'm not going to like The Sparrow as much as Frederica, and that may be a twist. And I'm going to say I'm not going to like Tender as the Flesh, because horrifying. So now I have to stop putting off my read of Tender as the Flesh, and I'm going to hopefully start with that one to get it out of the way. Hey guys, I have finished Tender as the Flesh. I actually ended up just buying this on Audible in the end because I thought, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to get through it physically or in an ebook, so I just used one of my credits on Audible for it. It is, I believe, set in Argentina. The author is Argentinian, and the book was translated from Spanish. The translator was Sarah Moses. It was narrated by Joseph Balderrama. I'm probably not pronouncing that name correctly. So he narrated it, and what did I think of Tender is the Flesh? When I was listening to this book, most of the way through, I was thinking, what is this? Like, why do we have to have this written down? I don't understand why this needs to be a thing. Essentially, it is a very triggering story, probably for many, many people, most people, about a world where all the animals, well, it's our world, so it's an imagined future, so it's a dystopian book. And she has imagined a future world where all the animals have caught some sort of virus and they've had to be slaughtered and killed because whatever this virus is, it's deadly to humans, and so humans decided to eradicate animals from the earth. There are some animals in this story. They're usually strays. I don't think they're very common. There are birds as well that do fly around still. Some people are still really terrified of the birds. Other people, like the main character that we're following, he believes that the government have faked this virus so that we can now have a meat trade that is based on certain demographics of people. So we're actually following Marcos. He's the main character, and I have a lot of issues with Marcos because so originally he worked in the slaughterhouse for animals for meat farming. His dad, I believe, was in charge of a slaughterhouse, so as soon as Marcos could work, he went to work for his dad. And then somewhere along the line, this virus thing happened, and the slaughterhouse that he now works for is now farming humans. And it is described in detail. Marcos, because of his experience, is actually quite high up in this company. He says that he has to work in this place because he needs money, because his father is in a assisted living home and he needs to be able to pay for it, and that's very, very expensive. He does have a wife, however, he's currently not living with his wife because they lost a child. Very triggering information around that as well. Yeah, I won't go into too much more detail other than that, but there's a lot going on for Marcos which makes you feel like you should feel sorry for him. However, he is still working in this factory where they are farming humans, and I just could never get past it. Marcos comes across as though he really dislikes this whole setup. He obviously believes it's a conspiracy theory, and he yeah, in lots of different situations, he's very judgmental over other people and their behaviors in many different situations. And yeah, I could never get past, like I said, the fact that he was still massively involved in the slaughtering of humans. So for most of the book, I was angry. I was angry, and there were so many scenes where I felt like the author, she just kind of took it like too far for me, because it was already bad. So you'd have a scene where there's something terrible happening, and then another thing would happen on top of that, and you'd go, oh, that's like worse. And then another thing would happen, and for me, it was too far. Like, too far. Why? It's already horrific. You don't have to add all these extra layers of horror. However, it is a horror, so I do understand that that is kind of the point, I guess, is to be horrific for horrific's sake. I think the book was probably trying to have some sort of discussion about society and kind of the, you know, how low can humans go? Because, you know, especially in this political climate, you see people and their tolerance and their kindness and their empathy for other people does seem to be just going down, 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 down. But like, how far is that going to go before you commit these horrific crimes and you're happy to kill people for food? So there is kind of that level of conversation going on a little bit, but never in like a properly deep way. Like, for me, the book is still discussing these things and imagining this world for the sake of the horror of it. And I think I probably would have been a lot more interested in that side of it had I thought that it was realistic so when I read dystopians, I do like to read them through the lens of, okay, this is scary because this could actually happen. I personally don't think, so the whole premise of it is that the reason why they have to farm humans is because humans are craving meat so much that they're now justifying eating humans. I just truly don't think that humans would crave meat enough for them to behave like that, or for them to be in the situation where now they're happy to farm people. Like, I just don't see it, because I just don't think that's how the body works. I think our bodies adapt. Like, you know, I'm very addicted to chocolate and sugar and coffee, but if I cut it out, it would only be like a month and my body would have forgotten about it. Do you know what I mean? I'm a vegetarian, you know, I don't eat meat. I do have dairy, obviously. That wasn't discussed in this book about dairy, because that to me would actually have been quite an interesting conversation to have within this context, is the side products basically from animals. If we were in a situation where all the animals had to be killed because of this virus, which is a whole thing that I don't really think would happen anyway, I feel like we'd get around it in like so many different variety of ways that I just couldn't buy into the story. I just never thought it was realistic. Maybe you disagree with me there. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear people's thoughts on that. But because of that, I just couldn't completely buy into the story itself, and it didn't horrify me in that kind of way because I just didn't think it was realistic in that kind of way. And yeah, I will admit that I did not like this book. Like, most of the way through, I was hating every second of it. I didn't really want to listen to it. Like, I usually listened to maybe half an hour at a time when I was washing up, and then I'd need a bit of a break. But then something weird happened. So towards like the last 20 minutes of the book, it dawned on me, this is a horror. This is supposed to be horrifying. And I suddenly got what the author was trying to do at the end of the book. And I liked it. I liked the ending of this book. So where does that leave us with the predictions? That's what I would like to know. I did predict that obviously this was going to be a miss, but obviously now I don't think it is, but I don't think I could give it like a 4-star because I didn't enjoy so much of it, and I do think for my personal taste it just took it too far. So I've given it a 3.75. Does that mean that I did like it overall? I think a 3.75 does mean that I liked the book. It doesn't mean I disliked the book. Hey guys, this is me jumping in because I just started to edit the video yesterday and I basically lost a clip. So when I was starting my review for By Any Other Name by Lauren Kate, I filmed the review and then I lost part of the synopsis, me telling you what the book is about. So I just wanted to jump on now and talk about that. So I listened to it, and the person who narrated the audiobook was Brittany Presley. Yeah, I wasn't a great fan of this book, not gonna lie. This book, I thought that it was gonna be a romance, and I guess it was a romance, but when I was reading the reviews, a lot of people said it should be pitched more as women's fiction than romance, so just bear that in mind. So right, in this book we are following Lainey, who works for a publishing company called Peony Press, who publishes the works of Lainey's favourite author in the whole wide world, Noah Calloway. So Noah Calloway writes best-selling romance novels, and she has always absolutely adored them, and she feels so lucky that she's managed to land herself this job. Noah Calloway is like a really mysterious character because nobody has really met her apart from a handful of people, and so even though Lainey is working for her, she's never actually physically met Noah in real life. And the only contact that they've had, well, they've actually had quite a lot of contact because they've been in touch over like messaging online, and they also play chess together. They've basically played chess together online for the past 7 years, which was quite an interesting part to the story, but you never ever heard anything about that part really. It was just kind of mentioned as a thing that happened, and I kind of feel like it felt quite disconnected to like the actual story that we got. Lainey is engaged to this guy who she feels like is an absolute perfect man because he manages to tick her 99 boxes of her ideal man. And the reason that she has this 99 tick list is because of one of Noah Calloway's books where it basically told you to make your list. And so it's very special to her, and she really feels that she has chosen the right person. They're going to get married, and yeah, she feels like she should be as ecstatic as can be. I think I can now cut to past me talking about the rest of this book because I think that I've caught up on what I was meant to say. Then one day her boss leaves because she's gone to have a baby. She doesn't want to come back to work, and so Lainey is offered to become the youngest like main editor for Noah Calloway. But this promotion kind of comes with a bit of a catch because Noah Calloway is actually struggling to write their next novel, and Lainey's boss says to her, look, I'm going to give you 6 months, we've got to get this novel out from Noah Calloway because they bring so much money into the company that then we're able to publish like lesser known authors and kind of take a chance on authors. So we really need this money because they bring in a lot for us. And I'm going to give you 6 months to try and get this book out of Noah Calloway because it is unheard of that they are not writing their book. And so Lainey basically is one of the very few handful of people who get to ever meet this Noah Calloway. And it kind of goes on from there, where she's trying to inspire Noah Calloway to write this novel. It's very predictable, I think. And yeah, it was kind of weird because Lainey as a character, she overreacted so badly. So when she meets Noah Calloway, I don't know, in some places this is in the blurb, in some places it's not in the blurb, so I'm not going to say it, but who Noah Calloway turns out to be isn't what Lainey expected. And she kicks off in a way that was so unprofessional, like it was ridiculous. And from that moment, I had lost faith in the book. I was like, no, this is so stupid. I can't even be on board with this. It's such an overreaction. And also I kind of felt that the book missed a bit of an opportunity to actually discuss around kind of who Noah Calloway really was. And there was a little bit of chat about that and maybe the consequences of that if people found out, but then you never get to see it play out basically. It kind of had the setup to being a little bit more of a thoughtful book about what this actually means, but then stayed very much on the level of this is just like a fun romance novel. Yeah, so all through the book there's a lot about Lainey and her friends, Lainey and her grandmother. Lainey kind of, it's more about Lainey, you know, going through life and falling in love, but also falling in love, I don't know. I didn't really buy it, and I really felt like throughout the book you're just kind of waiting for something to happen with regards to the romance, and it never quite gets there. Obviously it is leading down that road, but even right up to the very end you kind of just about get there and then it ends and you're like, oh okay, is that it? And yeah, it was very, very, very unsatisfying and just did not like it. I did not like this one. I wouldn't say it was the worst written book, to be honest. I did read this quite a while ago before my review, so I can't remember the good parts of the book. I can only the bad, negative parts have stayed with me. So unfortunately I can't give you any like balance to this review particularly. But yeah, I gave it 2.75 stars. So that's kind of the level that we're talking about. So there was obviously some good to it, otherwise I would have given it a 1 star. But yeah, just kind of a frustrating book for me. Okay, so my guess for this book was that Manny chose it for me not to like it, and I didn't like it. So I really hope that that is the case. I believe Lizzie did this in her videos, but essentially I am reviewing 3 books on the same day. And so I'm not going to change clothes like you know that I am reviewing these all on the same day, but I am changing locations like Lizzie did because I feel like that's more like Martine vibes. So the next book I read was Frederica by Georgette Heyer, and I listened to this as well, and it was narrated by a man, which surprised me. It was narrated by Joe Jameson. Okay, so where to start with this one? This is like a Regency romance, a historical fiction romance, but it was written in 1965. So in this book, you are following the Merivale family as they have just moved to London because Frederica, she's not the head of the family, she does have an older brother, but she is the one that's primarily in charge of her younger siblings. She's moved to London because her younger sister Caris is coming of age. She needs to be introduced into society, and Frederica wants that to be in London because she is this stunningly beautiful woman, and she's like, I don't want her to go to waste, and I want her to try and, you know, find herself a husband, essentially, because they're from the country where there's less men, less opportunities and things like that. You're also following Alverstoke. He's this total rake. He disregards his family, like he's not interested in his sisters particularly at all. In fact, he kind of actively dislikes one of his sisters, and he has no interest in his nieces and nephews. He doesn't know who they are. He doesn't really care about them. He doesn't want anything to do with them. Yeah, he just doesn't come across as a particularly nice guy. And at the start of the book, you see his sister come to him and say, look, my daughter is coming of age. Please can you put a ball on at your place and introduce her to society? And he's like, not gonna happen. No, I don't want to do that. And so she's fuming. She didn't really come across as a particularly nice person either, to be fair. Then he ends up meeting Frederica. I can't remember how now, but Frederica also asks him, well, she approaches him and she says, you are like some distant cousin. My father used to speak of you quite highly. And she doesn't know anything about his rake history or anything like that, or his bad reputation. And she's like, I've come to you for help because I want to introduce my sister. And initially he's like, no, but he's intrigued by Frederica. He spends most of the book being bored by people, which I found really annoying, because he would be having a conversation with someone, and if he felt like they were beneath him or less intelligent than him, then he'd be like, they're boring me. I don't want to continue this conversation, they're boring me. It was just so arrogant that I was just like, no. And then when he meets Frederica, he doesn't find her boring, because I guess she's a little bit sassy. And so he's interested, and then when he meets Caris and he sees how beautiful she is, he's like, yeah, let's do this because it's going to really annoy my sister. And so then he concocts this kind of fake story that Frederica's father, before he passed away, asked him to look after his family and take them into his care, and that's his justification of putting a ball on for Frederica. And he basically forces his sister to help her, Frederica and Caris, go and get the right dresses and kind of help her pay for everything. He forces his sister to do that so that then his sister's daughter can also be introduced at this ball. And obviously it doesn't go down well because Caris is very beautiful and will upstage all the women that come out that year. There are 2 younger siblings in the family called Jessamy and Felix, and they kind of idolise Alverstoke, and Alverstoke becomes very fond of them, which is very out of character of him. And yeah, so this whole kind of story is about Alverstoke integrating into this family, beginning to, you know, maybe develop some feelings for Frederica and falling in love with the family as a whole, which sounds like quite nice, but in the words of Alverstoke, boring. It was so boring. Things did happen, but they weren't particularly interesting, or I didn't particularly care. Like, even there was one big event that happened towards the end, and there was some like trepidation, I guess is maybe the word, and yeah, okay, but I just was really bored listening to this book. When I'm reading this kind of book, I do obviously start comparing it to things like Jane Austen, and I do love Jane Austen, and when they're like going to balls and they're kind of looking for husbands and all that kind of thing. But I feel like in a Jane Austen novel, the characters are really well rounded. They're very kind of, she's very good at kind of picking out characters that everybody knows and making each individual character very funny and interesting. Like, that's how I feel when I read Jane Austen books. I know not everyone agrees with that, but I think she's very good at holding a mirror up to society. And yeah, you've got the bald chat that maybe I'm not so personally interested in, but there's other things going on. You can kind of, there's like a richness to it, I guess. And in this book, it was very flat. It was just very, like, these are the characters, we're plodding through this plot, like everything was kind of on one level. And it really set me back, this book, because I was doing quite well going through the books for this video, and this, it took me ages and ages to read because I just didn't want to listen to it. I really felt like, and I almost DNF'd it, but then I thought, no, I've got to read it, just carry on going. Yeah. So unfortunately, I also did not like this book. I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. Again, now I'm talking about it, now that feels too generous. It feels too generous, but that's what I rated it after I finished reading it. So again, maybe there's good points about it that I've now forgotten, but I don't know. I just, yeah, it's not for me, and I just don't think that kind of author is for me. Okay, so I did predict that Mum chose this book for me. No idea if that's right, obviously. I predicted that Mum thought it was going to be a miss, and I predicted that I might like it. So if Mum did predict it as a miss, she was right. Okay, so the third book in this section, I finished The Lost Story by Meg Schaefer, and I also listened to this on audio, and it was narrated by Georgiana Marie. So this story is pitched as a fairy tale for adults. So at the start of the book, you find out that two of the main characters, Jeremy and Rafe, when they were children, about 14 years old, they go out on a school trip, and then they go missing on that school trip. And one day after 6 months, some hikers find them in the woods and call the ambulance and save them. Rafe's memory is actually gone. He doesn't remember a thing about his time when he was away. And Jeremy doesn't really explain what happens, but he is actually from quite a well-off family who have roots in England, so his mum whisks him away to his grandparents in England, and he's removed from the situation. And so Rafe and Jeremy actually don't speak again for another 15 years. So after we find out that they have been saved, then time jumps to 15 years later. We find out that Rafe lives alone in this kind of cabin in the woods and is very in tune with nature and is fighting away poachers and all that kind of thing. And Jeremy is actually world renowned for finding lost women and girls. He is kind of spookily good at it. So if a woman's missing, the authorities will call him, and then he will kind of hone in exactly where to find that person, which, yeah, is suspect. It is suspect, but that is his kind of skill, and that's what he's known for. You're also following Emily. So Emily is a young woman. She's in her early 20s, and she was adopted, and her adoptive mother passes away, and she never really wanted to find out about her family, I don't think. Her birth family, I don't think she really wanted to find out about them. I can't remember actually the story at the beginning, but she learns that she has a sister who was actually older than her, so 10 years older than her, and she finds out that she went missing when Emily was 3. So she went missing when she was 13 years old and was never found. It's like kind of an open case. So she really wants to get in touch with Jeremy to get him to find her sister. So she hears he's going to be like fairly close in America terms, and she drives for quite a long time to go and meet him, I think it's in the next state, and say, please can you help me find my sister? And he's like, okay, yeah, who do you want to be found? But then when she says that she went lost in Red Crow, it turns out that that's where Jeremy and Rafe were also lost when they were children, and he's like, I'm not going to help you. Anyway, so she really wants to convince him to help her, and during this time he realises actually that her sister is somebody that him and Rafe actually met when they went missing, but went by a different name. And so he's like, okay, I am going to help you actually, because I know your sister, and we need to get Rafe to come on this quest with us basically and find her. And so then the next stage is going to Rafe and trying to get him to come with them, because Rafe at this point hasn't spoken to Jeremy for 15 years. He doesn't remember what happened when they were lost, and he's furious with Jeremy for not giving him any answers at all and leaving him for England. So that's basically the setup of the story. And you know what? The first half of the story, I loved it. I was completely enthralled in the story and what was going on. It felt so magical. You knew whatever was brewing wasn't going to be like normal. It did feel kind of thrillerish in the beginning, talking about the lost women and girls, and there was some brutal chat in there and stuff, and there was a lot of kind of anticipation of what was going to happen. When you kind of get into like the main story when you actually go back to Red Crow and things like that. It did level out a little bit for me, and it was definitely more fairy tale than thriller. Like the thrillerness kind of went away. There was aspects of tension and things like that, but it didn't have the same kind of vibe as the beginning part did. There was a lot of discussion in this book about childhood trauma and kind of working past things that happen to you when you're a child and how you handle it and kind of coping mechanisms. So there was some difficult subject matter in here as well. There's also discussions about kind of acceptance of each other and accepting yourself and who you are and being brave enough to kind of admit things that you want. There was very kind of sweet relationships in this book, I think, and I really did like them. Jeremy and Rafe especially, I really did like their story, especially in the beginning. My only issue with Rafe and Jeremy is that when we meet them 15 years later, obviously if they were like 14, 15 when they went missing, this means they're now 30. And I did find, especially when we went into Red Crow, like they were very childlike. And so I couldn't quite think about them as being actually full-grown adults. So it would have been nice for me, I guess. I don't know, it is a fairy tale, it's supposed to be magical, and, you know, maybe that's not very important, but for me, I can be a bit of a realist about stuff. Yeah, I just would have maybe enjoyed it a little bit more if they'd felt a little bit more adult in those sections. They still felt very young adult, but then I suppose what they'd been through, especially Rafe, he became a bit of a recluse, so maybe he would still very much be like his teenage self. Jeremy was a lot more experienced and he still kind of came across quite young. But yeah, that would be my only kind of thing that I wasn't keen on, was the fact that it did feel very young at times, especially in part 2 of the book. But I did enjoy it overall. I ended up giving this one 4 stars because I enjoyed reading it. I felt like the audiobook was really good. There was a part where the narrator had to kind of speak in a bit of a spooky voice, and it genuinely frightened me. I was washing up and she did the voice and I was like jumped. I was like, what? And I definitely do want to read The Wishing Game, which is I think Meg Schaefer's first book. And when I read the reviews, a lot of people were saying, I liked this one, but it wasn't as good as The Wishing Game. So now I'm definitely wanting to read The Wishing Game, because if it's better than this one, then I will enjoy it. Okay, and for this, I guess that Mum chose this for me as a book that I would like, and I did like it. Hey guys, so I'm coming to you because I have finished the 5th book in this project, and I have finished The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell. And I listened to this on Everend, and the narrator was David Colaci. I did actually find the audiobook for this a little bit challenging, so I ended up buying the Kindle version as well, which is very Martine as well. So I ended up buying the Kindle version, and I was kind of reading it and listening to it at the same time. And there were differences. It was weird. The names were the same, but there was like variants of names, but different versions had different names at different times, and the paragraphs were switched around sometimes. Sometimes there was whole paragraphs like left out. So I do wonder at the times I was only listening to it what, if anything, I missed out on in the ebook. So this book is a sci-fi, and it is also heavily centered around religion and about God, and it's essentially following a guy called Emilio Sandos. Emilio is a Jesuit priest and also a linguist, and in this world, it's weird because, well, it's written in the 90s, so the years are like 2019, and you know, talking about all this futuristic stuff that never happened for 2019. So that was pretty interesting. And then other timelines were actually in 2060 as well. But the timelines were a bit strange because there was also travel to another planet in another star system, and so there was relativity involved as well, which meant that people aged at different rates and stuff like that, which I find interesting. So I love that part of it. This essentially is a religious group of people making first contact with aliens. They kind of took it upon themselves to go. They didn't really tell anyone. They were very secretive about it. At the start of this book, you know that Emilio has actually been sent back from the planet on his own. He's in really, really bad shape. He's had something terrible like happen to him. He had to travel back on his own, so he's become really malnourished. He's got scurvy. He's in like a terrible state. And this is one of those stories where it flips back and forth from 2060, where they're trying to get the story out of Emilio of what actually happened on this planet, And then it also spans leading up to the mission to Rakat, which is the name of the planet, and then you see what happens on Rakat. There's a lot to it. I did like it. I felt like there was a lot to think about. There are definite parallels between them as missionaries going over onto Rakat, although they didn't really spread the word of their religion so much. They were just more interested in studying what they found there. Obviously that always feels a bit weird because it feels very colonial, and I'm sure if we as humans had the chance to go to another planet, that is what we would try and do, exactly the same way as explorers went out into the new world. This group of people was actually very small that went to Rakat, and so they didn't kind of go in all guns blazing, and they more went in with some curiosity and just kind of tried to stay as low-key as possible and fit in as much as possible. That's what they tried to do. As the story goes on, well, you kind of know already that this is going to backfire in some way because of how Emilio is at the start of the book when he's been sent back from Rakat. So there's a lot of kind of, even, you know, you kind of know something's going to happen and you don't know what it is. So as the story goes on, even though you're prepared, I did find that when I was listening to it last night, something happened and I felt terrible about it. I was like, oh my gosh, why? Even though you know. I feel like the author did quite a good job at the discussions about God. There was definitely a mix of people with different beliefs in the group. There was someone of Jewish descent, there were the priests, so Christianity, and then there were atheists as well, agnostic people who didn't really know what they believed, and there was a lot of conversation about religion, which I don't usually like to read, but I did find it interesting and it did make me think, and I think it would make a good discussion if it was a book club book and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not going to ramble anymore, but essentially I did really like it. There is a second book. I don't know if I'm going to read it or not, but I might do because I feel like this is one of those books that's actually really going to stick with me and I'm going to remember for quite a long time. So I did end up giving this one a 4-star. No, 4.25 star I think I ended up giving it. Yeah, I ended up giving this one a 4.25 star. So I did really like it, and to be honest, I've only just finished it, so it does need to sink in a bit, but this video also needs to go up. So that's why I'm just getting the review done. I could probably say a whole lot more, but I don't want to ramble because the video is already long. Okay, so I did guess that Amy chose this book for me, and I guessed that Amy thought I was going to like it. And I thought I was not gonna like it. So I was wrong. I did like it. Hey guys, so I have literally just the second finished Folk by Zoe Gilbert, and this one I actually read with my eyeballs. I didn't listen to it at all. It was an audiobook that I didn't want to buy because it's super short. So yeah, this is such an interesting little book. It is a collection of short stories, and let me show you this map. So this is the map of the town, basically, that we're following the characters in. There's a town on the sea called Neverness, and on the map you've got all the little houses, and it's got the names of the people that live in the little houses, and you can definitely refer back to this map to like kind of give yourself a bit more perspective when you're reading the stories. And so the stories are kind of connected, but only really in the fact that they follow residents of this town. The individual stories themselves are very, well, they're very folk tale-esque, kind of not really fairy tale-esque, but a little bit fairy tale-esque, very, very dark and very, very sad at times, and also at times quite disturbing. I think the writing of Zoe Gilbert is absolutely beautiful. Like the way that she writes, I really felt was very rich, and you could really, really imagine this place. And I don't picture things in my head, but I felt like she almost brought that out in me. I could almost picture, but not quite, the world that she had built for these people. I just really appreciate that in an author's writing, if it kind of really brings it off the page for me and makes it come to life. They're weird. The stories are weird. There's a sense of magic in them, and you're never really quite sure if it's real magic or if it's just folk tales in the individual stories that the townspeople really just truly believe in, and actually the things that are happening are coming from quite a dark, sinister place, but have been turned into this folk tale that makes it feel like it's magical rather than just awful. That definitely is the case for one of the stories in here. And so yeah, a lot of the stories I was thinking, okay, this is a bit of a metaphor for this scenario that happens in everyday life. But then there were other stories where, you know, at one point someone had a whole arm that was a wing, you know? So I felt like that was also a metaphor for something else, but within this town, it was real, if you know what I mean. So yeah, there was a lot of that kind of strangeness about it. So definitely look up trigger warnings, I would say, if you were interested in picking up this book. I do think, though, it was so well written, and even though at times there were a couple of stories in here where I was like, I don't want to read the rest of this book because it's truly disturbing. Even though I did have moments like that, now I've finished it, I do feel like I may actually pick it up again in the future, just to try and hang on to those threads, because especially the last few stories of the book, there is mention of other characters in the other stories, and I'd forgotten who they were. So I think going back and rereading them would actually be quite interesting, because you may pick up on little things that happened in other stories and things like that. So yeah, I did really like this one. I was so unsure at one point. I thought I was going to DNF it because I was like, I don't know if I want to read this. And I'm really shocked that now I've got to the end of it that I have liked it as much as I have, and I've given it 4.5 stars. So yeah, I would say enter with caution, but the writing is beautiful and definitely sets a scene, even if that scene is not always the best and at times disturbing. And this one I thought Manny chose for me, and I thought Manny chose it because she thought I would like it. And I did like it. Okay, so after months in the making, I'm finally going to find out if I'm right in my predictions. So I've got the videos here. So let's start with Amy.
Okay, I'm going to regret this decision, Kim, because you'll probably stop being my friend after this. But I want to recommend a book to you that I really loved, that I know you're going to hate. Like, you're not going to like this book, Kim. I can't, you may surprise me, but I don't think you're going to like this book at all. It's a rough book. A lot of people have a really hard time with it, and it really is not for the squeamish, because it's a difficult topic and it is very graphic. I'm regretting already recommending this, but I think that for this prompt, a book that I think you will hate, that I really loved, I'm going to recommend Tender as the Flesh by Agustina Bastarrica. This is a book about cannibalism, and it was really good. It was really well written, and the underlying messages were fantastic and interesting, but it is a book about cannibalism. So good luck. Let's hope we stay friends after I've made you read this.
Well, as we know, I did hate it. I hated my whole experience of reading it, except for 20 minutes from the end, and I ended up giving it 3.75. So that is kind of a win. So thank you, Amy, for pushing me out of my comfort zone, because I never would have picked that up. Not in a million years. And yeah, we are still friends. Don't you worry. It could have gone another way. Okay, so that was the one she thought I was going to hate. Let's find out the one she thought I was going to like.
Hi, Kim. I am so excited that you have asked me to participate in this, where I'm giving you a recommendation of one of my favorite books that I think you're going to love. And I'm a little nervous about this one because it is one of my all-time favorite books, but it's one of those situations where when I recommend it to people, 50% of them love it and 50% of them hate it. And I'm really hoping you'll be one of the love-its. I think you will enjoy this book, though, because it is sci-fi, and I know you love sci-fi, and it's a very complex story. It has a lot of religious elements to it, and I know, like me, you're not very religious, but it's more of like a question of faith, and I think that ups the complexity of the story. It's got a lot of heart in different ways and makes you think and feel, and there's some bits that are a bit hard to process, but I think you can handle it. And I just think that this could be a book you really enjoy. I hope. I really, really hope, because it'll just break my heart if you don't. No, I'm kidding. No pressure, no pressure. But I do think there's a good chance you will love this book. So I would like to recommend The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell to you. This is just such an amazing story, and it's been around for a while. This isn't a new release or anything like that, and I think it holds up. I really do think it holds up. So fingers crossed you enjoy this one, and happy reading.
I did like that one a lot, Amy, and yeah, very complex and very at times sad, as you know. But I definitely fell in love with some of the characters. So yeah, that was such a great choice. Thank you so much for introducing me to The Sparrow. I would love to know if you've read book 2 actually, and if you would recommend book 2, let me know. But yeah, thank you, Amy. And guess what? 2 for 2. I guessed them both right. Right, let's find out if I was as correct with Manny and my mum. So let's watch my mum's one first.
Hi, Kimberly. So the first book that I chose for you, one that I thought that you might like, is called Frederica by Georgette Heyer. Yeah. It was first published in 1965, and it's a Regency romance set in 1818. And I thought that you would like that one because you do like the classics. I know that you don't like romance very much, but I did think that because of its setting, it might be one that you liked. Fingers crossed.
Okay, as we know, I did not like Frederica at all. But in fairness to my mum, I did predict it was going to be a hit as well. So I guess I did agree with her. I can't be too mad at her for picking a book that I didn't like, because I also thought there was a chance I might like it. Interestingly, I did think that Mum chose that book as a miss, so let's find out what the actual miss was.
Hi again, Kimberly. So the second book that I chose for you, one that I didn't think that you would like at all in any way, shape or form, is called By Any Other Name by Lauren Kate. And that is simply because it's a contemporary romance. And I know that they're not really your scene. But yeah, so you'll have to let me know whether I was right. Did you like the other book? Or did you prefer this one? Or did I hit the mark on both?
No, Mum's right. I really did not like By Any Other Name. That was correct. I actually thought Manny had chosen me that book as one I didn't like. So yeah, it was Mum. And she was right, I really did not like that. It's interesting that she chose 2 romances for this, knowing full well that I don't like romance books usually. But like I said before, I did also think there was a chance I would like Frederica. So that means Manny chose Folk, which I did think she had picked, and also The Lost Story. So I wonder which one she thought I was going to like and which one she thought I was going to hate. Let's find out.
Hi Kim. So for the book that I thought that you would like, I chose Folk by Zoe Gilbert. I chose it, well, I already knew that it was on your TBR because I've seen it. You own it. So if you bought it, then you would also think that you would enjoy it, I guess. Did that make sense? But having read it and knowing our similar taste in books, I thought that you might as well. It's a very atmospheric kind of story where you follow some characters living in a very isolated place, and it mixes like folk tales and, you know, the interconnectedness between all those characters. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. So hope you did too.
Yeah, thank you, Manny. I did enjoy it. This one, the only one that I owned. So yeah, so that means that Manny thought I wasn't going to like The Lost Story. I'm so intrigued as to why.
Hi Kim. So for the book that I thought that you wouldn't like as much, I chose The Lost Story by Meg Schaefer. I mainly chose it because I really loved it. It's one of my all-time favorite books from the past few years. But I wasn't sure if you were going to like it as much, even knowing that our reading tastes are pretty similar. Because it leans more into the cozy side of fantasy with some romance, and I guess that when I chose it, I wasn't really sure that that is what you were reading. I don't know. So yeah, I chose that one. I do hope that you did enjoy it though.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And actually, Manny's right, because the part of the story that I didn't like was maybe the cozier vibe of the book. But there was loads of the book that I did really like. So yeah, I can definitely see why Manny loved the book so much though, because it is a really good book. I'm really interested in reading from Meg Schaefer again. So thanks, Manny, for introducing me to that author, because I don't think I would have ever picked it up if you had not done that. Not gonna lie, I think I did pretty well. I definitely really enjoyed doing this. I thought it was fun. I'm really glad that I ended on the 3 books that I liked the most, so I saved them till last. So maybe deep down I did know which ones were going to be misses and which ones were going to be hits because of the way that I read them. You know, I got the ones I wasn't going to like out the way early, and then I saved the best till last. That's how I eat my food as well, by the way. So yeah, I want to give a big thank you to my mum, to Manny and to Amy for suggesting books for me and taking time to think about what I may like and what I might not like. And also massive thank you to Martine for inspiring this video and inspiring this whole video series, because it's been a lot of fun to collaborate with everybody. So of course I will link down in the description to absolutely everybody in this video, including the collaborators for 12 TBRs of Friendship. Thank you guys so much for inviting me to join you. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. And of course, if you haven't checked out already Martine's 12 TBRs of Christmas, they've only just come out, so highly recommend. Beat the January blues and go back and watch some festive videos. They're not like festive themed, but they are a lot of fun and will bring a lot of joy in the month of January. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you got to the end, this was a long video. I'm really gonna like go off and try and edit this down as much as possible, because I'm sure I just ramble. But yeah, thank you for getting to the end of the video. I would love to know what you guys thought of the books as well, if you've read them, if you liked them, if you didn't like them, if you think you would like them, if you think you wouldn't like them. Yeah, so let me know down in the comments. Tomorrow's video will be over on Amanda's channel, which is the Reading and Writing Life, so please do go and check out Amanda's video tomorrow. It's going to be very exciting. And yeah, I think that's everything. Bye humans, bye!